Welcome to episode 3 of LiveWebDJ's podcast series. This is your host, Brandon. Today I'm going to introduce you to the concept of clock wheels. Clock wheels tell LiveWebDJ what playlist to select tracks from and in what order. Moreover, I'm going to show you how to create events to enable you to switch between clock wheels to change the playout structure according to your schedule. Alright, hey everybody, welcome back. I hope you're having a great day and thanks for tuning in. Once again, this is Brandon, and I'll be hosting today's podcast. One of the most frequently asked about features in LiveWebDJ is clock wheels. What is a clock wheel, you might ask? Well, it's one of the biggest tools you have available to you that you might not even know about. It's simple and very flexible. At its core, in the most simplistic description I can come up with, is that a clock wheel is simply a list of playlists. LiveWebDJ uses the current active clock wheel to determine what playlist to select tracks from. LiveWebDJ also uses the order at which the playlists are arranged within the clock wheel to determine what playlist to select the next track from. Have you ever wondered how big-budget terrestrial radio stations always play a station ID, promo, or liner after every other song? Or how they sometimes have drop the format lunch hours where they play tracks that they normally don't play, like from their complete collection instead of only their normal small list? Or how commercials are always played after every 5 songs? Well, this is how they do it. The simple answer to that is that they have created multiple clock wheels, and their automation software follows the active clock wheel when selecting tracks to play. They even schedule days and often weeks in advance what clock wheels will play and when they'll play. You can do all that too right here with your station with LiveWebDJ. A quick note before we dive into examples, it's worth noting what I have my accessibility settings set to. Go to Settings from the left-hand menu, then click on Accessibility Settings. As you can see, I have the global accessibility settings set to enabled, and you can ignore the media and playlist section override. If you set yours the same way, your interface will appear identical to mine. Alright, so where should you start? Let me show you a few simple examples as a foundation, and I have no doubt that you'll be able to accomplish what you want. Let's start simple. When you first signed up for LiveWebDJ, we automatically provided you with the default clock wheel. Let's go take a look at it. Click on Clock Wheels from the left-hand menu. Then select to edit the default clock wheel. As you can see, there are 3 items listed. The first 2 items are both general rotation, with the third item being station IDs. What this means is that LiveWebDJ will select 2 tracks from the general rotation playlist, and then 1 track from the Station IDs playlist. Then it will start back at the top and do this over and over again. So how does LiveWebDJ decide which track to select from within these playlists? To determine that, we have to take a quick look at the playlists themselves. Let's take a look at the General Rotation playlist. Click on Media and Playlists from the left-hand menu. Then click to select the General Rotation playlist. At the top of the screen, it indicates 2 important things. First, it indicates that this playlist is a shuffled playlist. And second, it indicates that separation rules are being applied. Oh, since we're talking about separation rules, it's worth mentioning that you should have all your tracks tagged properly and make sure the artist and title names in LiveWebDJ are accurate and consistent. Next, we know this is a shuffled playlist. This is pretty basic, and what this means is that when tracks are selected from this playlist, they are selected in a random fashion. Next, we know that we are applying separation rules to this playlist. Separation rules tell LiveWebDJ how much time must pass before selecting the same track again, and also how much time must pass before playing another song from the same artist again. Another way to think of a shuffled playlist such as this one is think of it as a category. For example, you may want to create multiple shuffled playlists thinking of them as categories, such as Top 40, Rock, Adult Contemporary, Country, Dance. Well, you get the idea. It's a way to separate your music with more detail so that you can further control the structure of your station using clock wheels. Now let's go back to the clock wheel. Click on Clock Wheels from the left-hand menu. And click to edit the default clock wheel. Remember, we still have 1 playlist on this clock wheel, Station IDs. Now let's take a look at this playlist and find out more about it. Click on Media and Playlists, then select to edit the Station IDs playlist. Looking at the top, we learn that this playlist is an ordered playlist. This means tracks are selected, you guessed it, in order. When it comes to having this ordered playlist on a clock wheel, it's important to note that separation rules cannot be applied. This makes it great for a revolving list of station IDs, station liners or promos, etc. After all, you want those kinds of things to repeat. Every time LiveWebDJ comes across an ordered playlist on a clock wheel, it will know which position it last selected a track from, and it will know to select the track from the next following position. When it gets to the bottom of this playlist, it will start back at the top again. It's also important to note that a clock wheel will only select one track from each playlist entry. So if you wanted to play two station IDs or promos back to back, you would need to add the playlist twice in a row on the clock wheel. Okay, so we know about the default clock wheel. It's pretty basic. It simply plays two tracks from the general rotation playlist, then one track from the station IDs playlist. When it's done doing that, it restarts. Now I'm getting to the fun part. As a more advanced example, I'm going to create multiple shuffled playlists where each one will be a different category of music. Then I'm going to create clock wheels that pull from a few of these playlists. Then when I'm done with that, I'm going to pull it all together and show you how to create events to switch between the clock wheels at different times of the day. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to go ahead and create 6 shuffled playlists. Since I'm using these as categories, I'm going to name them after different categories of music that I want to play. First, I'm going to create a playlist named Top 40. I'm going to select Shuffle Songs to make sure this is a shuffled playlist. Then I'm going to select Yes for Apply Separation Rules, since these playlists will all contain music and I don't want to hear repeats too often. Then once I click on the Create Playlist button, it is created. Now I'm going to do the same and name the next one Rock. I'm going to name the next one Adult Contempt. And the next one Country. And the next one Dance. And finally, the last one I'm going to name 90s. Of course, you'll want to add tracks onto each one of these playlists that you have imported into LiveWebDJ. I'm going to skip that step and we'll assume I've already done that. Okay, now I'm going to create 3 separate clock wheels. Why 3? Well, because I want to have an AM clock wheel, a noon hour clock wheel, and an afternoon evening clock wheel. Let's create the AM clock wheel. Click on Clock Wheels from the left-hand menu and let's create a new clock wheel. Type in AM for the clock wheel name and click the button. Now let's click to edit the AM clock wheel. In the mornings, I'm going to intend on playing different music than the rest of the day. I'm going to add Top 40, Adult Contempt, and Country. Those are the 3 categories of music I want to play in the mornings. Now let's say I want to play 2 tracks from Top 40 in a row. So let's add another Top 40. Notice it added Top 40 to the bottom of the clock wheel. Let's bring that farther up so we have 2 Top 40s in a row. As it stands right now, Adult Contempt is 3rd. Since I plan on playing a station ID every 4th track, I'm going to next add station IDs to the clock wheel. To make it 4th, I'm going to move it up 1 position, so it's just after Adult Contempt. Next, let's say I want to play another Adult Contempt track after that, so I'll add another Adult Contempt. Go ahead and move it up 1 position. Let's add another country track at the bottom, so we'll play 2 country tracks in a row. Since I want to always play a station ID every 4th track, I'm also going to add station IDs 1 last time. Now our AM clock wheel is finished. It will play 2 Top 40 tracks, an Adult Contempt track, then a station ID. Then it will play another adult contempt track, 2 country tracks, and another station ID. When this clock wheel is active, it will follow this clock wheel to determine what to play. Next, I want to have a 90s only noon hour where only 90s music is selected. To accomplish this, let's create a new clock wheel and let's name it 90s. Let's now go edit the 90s clock wheel I just created. Now let's add the 90s playlist 3 times. Remember how I always want to play a station ID every 4th song? Let's add the station IDs playlist. Alright, as you can see, our 90s clock wheel is now complete. It will play 3 tracks in a row from the 90s playlist, and then it will play a station ID. While this clock wheel is active, it will follow this clock wheel to determine what to play. Alright, just one clock wheel left. Let's select to create a new clock wheel, and let's call this one PM. In this clock wheel, I want to play slightly different categories of music than I played during the AM. Let's select to edit the PM clock wheel. Let's add 2 tracks from Top 40. Next, let's add a track from rock. Since our next position will be number 4, let's go ahead and add a station ID. Next, let's add 2 tracks from dance. And then another top 40. Since the next position will be number 8, let's add a station ID. After that, I want to slow it down a little bit, so I'm going to play 2 tracks from Adult Contempt. And then a track from country. Lastly, to follow my logic of playing a station ID every 4th song, I'm going to finally add another station ID. Okay, now I have my PM clock wheel set the way I want it. Now let's review really quick what I'm trying to accomplish. What I want to do is play tracks from my AM clock wheel during the mornings. Then I'm going to have a 90s only lunch hour, selecting tracks from the 90s clock wheel during that time. Then I want to play tracks from the PM clock wheel in the afternoons and throughout the evenings. So how do we tell LiveWebDJ to do that? The answer to that question is events. Let's click on events from the left-hand menu. What we want to do is create some events that tell LiveWebDJ when to start each clock wheel. Let's start by clicking on Switch Clock Wheel. This loads a page where I can create an event where I can tell LiveWebDJ when to start playing from a certain clock wheel. Let's start by creating our first event. Since I'm going to do the same things every day, I'm going to make this a recurring event by selecting Recurring Event. Then I'm going to select the AM clock wheel from the drop-down menu, and I'm going to select 3 AM for my start time. And I'm going to select all days of the week since I'll be doing the same things each day. Then I'm going to click to create the event. Whoa, now I see a whole bunch of events show up. What did I do wrong? Well, I didn't do anything wrong. What LiveWebDJ is doing is it's listing the upcoming recurring events for the next 14 days. Let's come back to this in a bit. We still have more events to create. Next, I'm going to click on Switch Clock Wheel at the top to create a new event. Again, I'm going to select Recurring Event. I'm going to select the 90s clock wheel, and I'm going to select noon as the start time. I'm also going to select all days of the week. And click to create the event button. This time, I see even more events on the list. Again, I'll get back to this in a minute. Let's click on Switch Clock Wheel at the top again to create our last event. Just like the previous events, I'm going to select Recurring Event. This time, let's select the PM clock wheel. And let's select 1 PM for the start time. And again, let's select all days of the week. And of course, click on the Create Event button. Alright, now we have a full list of all the upcoming recurring events for the next 14 days. As you can see, every day it will start playing from the AM clock wheel at 3 AM, then switch to the 90s clock wheel at noon, and lastly we can see that it will switch to the PM clock wheel starting at 1 PM each day. If you want to make any changes to any of your recurring events, you can click on the Edit Recurring Event to edit that recurring event. This takes you to the familiar page where we could change the time for this event to start, change which clock wheel it switches to, and also change the days of the week for this event to recur. You also have the option to delete this event if you'd like. Since I'm not going to make any changes to this event, I'm going to just click on the Events from the left-hand menu to bring up the Events page again. Next, I'm going to scroll to the very bottom of the page where there's a cool timeline. As you can see on the timeline, it visualizes when each event will start. This is a great way to get a glance of what's going to happen. Well, there you have it, folks. You should now know how to manage what your station will be playing and when it will be playing it. This knowledge gives you the power to make your station sound very professional and unique. You now have the ability to quickly manage and automate your station in an efficient manner so that your station is playing what your listeners want to hear and when they want to hear it. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you for utilizing LiveWebDJ for your internet radio station. If you need help or run into any problems, just click on Help from the left-hand menu. This takes you to our community help desk that has a lot of helpful information and tutorials. If you can't find the answer you're looking for, feel free to start a discussion in our community forum or submit a new ticket for friendly help directly from us. Have a great day, and more importantly, have fun!